Hello everyone, I am Cool Guy, welcome back. Today's video is about the new season of the Splicer exotic hunter legs, the Star Eater scales. I don't think you're ready for this one. I'm about to blow your mind. This is a top 3 PvE exotic all around in Destiny 2, and I'm dead serious about that. I'm going to show you how to use it. You can outdamage anything in the game, anything, and that includes the falling star thundercrash. Like, what if I told you you could do over 2.5 times more damage than the falling star thundercrash? Because you can. It's nuts, and I seriously think it might get nerfed before Vault of Glass. If it's not going to be nerfed before then, I highly recommend that you use these. In regular play, I haven't found an enemy that can take the damage that I'm dealing. It would need to be a raid, it would need to be a dungeon, and I do have some footage of that. So remember this when you're underleveled. Remember this for, let's say, solo lost sectors and higher tier content, damage phases, things like that, because you want these. You want these on your fire team. The exotic perk is Feast of Light. You gain additional super energy from orbs of power you pick up. While your super energy is full, picking up an orb of power overcharges your super, causing you to gain a burst of healing when cast and a bonus to your super damage. At maximum overcharge, you gain an overshield. These are insane, absolutely insane. And it very well might be the best PvE exotic in Destiny 2 for team play, and I don't say that lightly, like I'm dead serious. Because as we know, it's been the same for the longest time. All hunter subclasses, all Titan, all Warlock are tied to something. The Rig Night Stalker Tether, Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun, Raiden Flux Arcstrider, or the Titan being on a bubble. We go into encounters and usually exotics are called for the encounter. Set to a class. Not anymore. First thing to talk about, the super energy from the orbs. Now when you run this, I highly recommend you run a 100 intellect and a Thresh masterworked weapon. Like this one, I have a Subsistence Thresh Palindrome, it's amazing. I spent all day with this exotic, and I know a lot of creators are pushing out stuff as fast as they can. I do too. I spend a lot of time finding out how these things work so I can help you. It takes a lot of time to do so if you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button. My stuff's usually a tad bit later than most, but I try. Now the deal is, as far as how much super you're gaining from the orbs, it's substantial. Because with this combination, 100 intellect, Thresh weapon, you down back-to-back adds. Thresh is working on both of those adds, and then you pick up the masterworked orb. If there's a ton of enemies, whatever content you're in, you fly to your super, and that's not even mentioning all the orbs that you're gonna pick up from teammates, and there's gonna be a ton of them. And remember, you get a little bit more super energy for double and triple kills. All of it has a scalar to it. Like in PvP, you get super energy when your team caps a zone, even if you're nowhere near that zone cap. You could be across the map, so the super energy just happens. But this combination, 100 intellect and Thresh, is great. When you get to your super, that's when you start collecting the feast orbs. You can go to a ×4 stack, and I highly recommend that you get to that ×4 stack if you can. The feast orbs overcharge your super, causing you to gain that burst of healing when you cast, and then the bonus to the super damage. And when you're at maximum ×4 feast, you gain that overshield. When you're low health and you need to stay alive, you have that 4 times charge. It's gonna fill you up and it's gonna overshield you. It's great. It's a very good perk to have. And as I go on here, that's gonna be a big part of you wanting the ×4 when you pop. You can use that super pop to keep you alive in higher level content. Now, the more damage from the super. Let's first take a look at Bottom Tree Golden Gun. It's always been reserved for the Celestial Nighthawk. The base first shot is 51,454, the second shot is 75,021. With ×1 feast, it's 59,172 for the first, 86,274 for the second. It scales all the way up to ×4, where the first shot is 82,326, and the second shot is 120,033. This isn't counting the third shot. This enemy is coded as a boss, and the Celestial Nighthawk did 308,723. This exotic does outdamage Nighthawk when you have a ×4 stack of Feast. I've seen damage numbers, and the Star Eater here, these legs, it's getting about a little over 50,000 more damage than the Nighthawk. But it's very important you try to get to a ×4. You have a base ×1, it's 15% more. The ×2 is 30% more, ×3 is 45, and then ×4 is that 60% more. Like in the case of the Golden Gun, that's for each shot. So the base second shot doing 75,021, a feast ×4 is 120,033. Each damage is 60% more from what it was from base. It's a ton of damage. With something like Spectral Blades, and this footage is base, I don't have the legs on right here, but you have the added benefit to debuff your target. You can get a crouching headshot, proc flawless execution, melee the enemy, and then go into your Spectral Blades. And as soon as I pop, there is a stomp mechanic right here, but I do get more damage because I use that flawless execution debuff. With ×4 feast, there was no stomp mechanic, but if there was, the overshield would have eaten that. And as you can see, the Spectral Blades do a ton more damage than base. With something like Top Tree Arcstrider, the light, heavy attack, the palm attack, it does a total of 101 damage, 589. all 3 of those hits, and you can do this combination 4 times before your super runs out. So if I were able to hit this boss over and over and they didn't die, the entire damage duration would be 406,356 for Top Tree Arc. As you saw earlier, and I know you guys have played the 6-man activity, sometimes there's a little bit of lagging in the damage phases. Sometimes it takes a little too long. This Arc Strider super with ×4 Feast pretty much takes a damage phase by itself. Any super, Blade Barrage doing 60% more, all of them are great, but there are 3 main ones you should be using. And this is gonna escalate and build and build. It's just gonna keep getting better from here. I'm gonna keep building on this. Bottom Tree Tether. We've seen the damage numbers for Arc Strider, Celestial Nighthawk, Spectral Blades, Arc Strider. The regular Tether does 71,979 with your follow-up shots. You get 5 total shots doing this increased damage with Bottom Tree. So it would have been a total of 359,895. Well, with ×4 Feast, that jumps to 115,166. So those 5 shots would be 575,830. I'm gonna come back to Bottom Tree in a moment, but here's where it gets crazy. The best tree to use this with is Top Tree Tether. Now there is a close second one, I'm gonna get to it. But with these legs, as long as your super is up, you deal 60% more damage. This means that you can pop the tether, debuff your enemy with the tether, then deal 60% more damage with your weapons the entire duration that that tether is up. But it gets even better. As a side note, Falling Star did 343,000 damage to this enemy with a little over 17,000 for the aftershock damage, and I'm going to come back to this a little bit later as far as Falling Star in higher tier play in the dungeon. Each damage combination in Destiny gets a buff and a debuff. Then there are outliers added on top, so this 60% is something added on top. If there are multiple buffs and debuffs, the game takes the higher buff or debuff and uses that. So something like Palindrome, it does 3,990 damage. With the Feast ×4 buff and the debuff from the Tether, it deals 8,300 damage. Pretty good, but remember, in the damage combination, there's room for a buff, so if you have a Bubble Titan with you, that stacks on top. Palindrome, starting at base, 3,990, then 8,300. With Weapons of Light, it deals 11,204. 180% more than base, that's almost 3 times the original base damage, and this is just the Palindrome. I want to now introduce you to Argent Ordnance, the Godslayer warheads. While charged with light, readying or firing a rocket launcher grants increased damage and reload speed. Damaging a combatant with a rocket consumes the stack of charged with light. This mod's effect stacks with other copies, so you get 3 or 4 of them with taking charge, and that's what I recommend. This is basically free this season because of the artifact. All rocket launcher stuff, Reloader, 1 energy. Argent Ordnance, 1 energy. Rocket Scavenger, 1 energy. Use them. There's a trick to this mod I want to bring up from a video in the past that I made when this mod came out, and this trick still holds true. So for the setup, you're going to have 2 stacks of Charge with Light. You're going to get your super as you're gaining orbs. That's either going to be from teammates' orbs or your masterworked weapon. You're going to be at ×4 Feast, so you're going to have 2 stacks of Charge with Light. And remember all those damage numbers? Like we went through the full Arc Strider light, light, heavy. It was about 104,000 for that sequence. The 3-shot golden gun. Now we didn't see a third, but it would have been about 360,000 total damage. Bottom Tree Tether doing 115,000 per shot. The Godslayer warhead on Truth here, 174,210. That's just 1 Truth rocket, and you can get off 5 to 6 of them until the tether is gone. And when it is, your 60% damage buff runs out. If you land all 6 and in a vacuum, say I could fire off those 5-6 rockets doing all that damage without the enemy dying, that's just over 1 million damage. And a very important note, all this damage, this 60% more with tether, is only from you. So even though my Truth rocket just did 174,000 damage, that's because of my tether ×4 Feast doing 60% more and the warheads. For anyone else that shoots at this target, they're just getting the tether debuff. Moving on, there are 2 rockets that you want to use with this. Both of them are great, it's Truth or the Two-Tailed Fox. This perk, Argent Ordnance, the trick to it is it states that when you damage a combatant with a rocket, that will consume a stack of Charge with Light. If you use a single tube rocket, like think Lasting Impression, you're going to shoot the rocket, once it explodes, it's going to consume that stack. So you only get 2 Godslayer warheads for your 2 stacks. And also remember, you're going to have on rocket reloaders, and the perk itself, Argent Ordnance, gives you reload speed. But the deal with Truth, it holds 3 rockets in the tube. It counts those 3 back to back to back as a single stack of Charge with Light for the warheads. So all 6 that you send out, it consumes 2 stacks. It's going to do 5 at least. And for you to land all 6, you need to be a little bit closer to your enemy. Those are all going to have the Godslayer buff damage. I'm gonna get to Two-Tailed Fox in a second, but here's that in action for the Prophecy final boss here. Just me shooting all my truth rockets. In the first 5 getting that ×4 feast buff, then jump off, see what my damage is. Just me. At the start of the encounter, I did about a quarter of the boss's health, over 1.6 million damage by myself. And another thing that we did is we took a Falling Star Titan using a Lasting Impression rocket. They shot the rocket, got that damage, then did the thundercrash. Then I did this build, and a couple things about my run, about my part, that overshield came in clutch. I was in low red health. As soon as I popped my tether, I had the overshield. But I totally botched my damage. I missed rockets. But even then, I came out over 200,000 more damage than this Titan. Again, that's missing rockets and not even doing a really good job. Moving on to Two-Tailed Fox, it's just as good. Since it shoots 2 rockets and it also has burning damage, the Godslayer Warhead, the Argent Ordnance perk, it sometimes doesn't take, so you can just keep using it. The Two-Tailed Fox is right up there with Truth. It does crazy good damage. I mean, Deathbringer could work, but with the time that you have, even with the Catalyst, it's not going to do more damage overall than these. But the end result, like a full run, imagine this. Imagine this encounter, or you drop a rally flag at the start of like a Vault of Glass encounter for damage. You want very quick, clean, and heavy damage. You're going to hit the flag. After that, a Crest of Alpha Loopy Titan is going to drop their bubble for the team. You're going to start the encounter. That Titan is going to drop 4 orbs, and guess what? That's your ×4 feast. Everyone has Weapons of Light. As a buff, you drop the tether on the enemy. Everyone is using your tether for damage with their Weapons of Light, so they're dropping rockets, linear fusions, thunder crashes. Meanwhile, you're throwing big damage with these rockets. And also Truth and Two-Tailed Fox, at a distance, they're great because they have tracking on them. If a boss moves or they teleport, it's going to find them. It's huge for damage phases. But even as a solo player, like by yourself, it's massive. Like I haven't found a regular enemy in the game that can withstand this damage. I need to be in a raid. I need to be in the dungeon. The second top subclass to use is actually Revenant Stasis. Just like Tether, as long as the tether is on your screen and up, you deal the 60% more. If the boss teleports out of the tether, yeah, you lose the debuff, but not the 60% more damage because you're still, quote, in your super. When the tether runs out, your damage is over. The Revenant is the same thing. You have Hedrons, you pop Silence and Squall, that tornado does 60% more damage per tick. Meanwhile, you're doing Godslayer Warheads or whatever you're doing. When the tornado runs out, your 60% damage is over from your weapons. It's crazy, guys. Like immediate skyrocket to top 3 in the entire game, if not overall in Destiny 2. Because with that tether, it's like a catalyst for your entire team. You're helping everyone. And back to Bottom Tree, it's kind of like with Revenant when you throw the tornado. You could throw that first shot, maybe land 1 for 115,000 or whatever it is, the 60% more damage on it, but just because you shot the second one, your super meter's going down, you could still bring out weapons and use the Godslayer Warheads. And with this, I'm thinking of like big damage, far away, you can't get close, there's stomp mechanics. That's why I brought up the rockets and the season with the Argent Ordnance mods. But when you can get close, if they're stationary, why not a Vorpal Linear Fusion? Someone could use a Divinity Bubble. It'd be the same scenario. Pop Weapons of Light, everyone has weapons. Someone can use a Divinity Bubble. And even though Divinity is going to take your debuff, you're going to make sure that you're landing crits and you're doing it with a Vorpal Linear that's doing 60% more damage. It's crazy. Or why not pop your tether and use Double Slug Shotgun with Anarchy? Or get close with a Charge with Light, Lucent Blade Lament. There's endless possibilities. It's S tier. This has been a strict PvE review, but a couple of words for the Crucible. There are 2 things that I recommend. Number 1, if you get your super first a lot of the time, use your super first. When it's done, switch to these. Because you're going to be looking for your teammates, your 5 other teammates in 6v6, to drop their supers, and you're going to go gather those orbs. Now the second thing in Trials of Osiris, if you have a Bubble Titan teammate, set it up where you go first in a round, get your super out. For the next round, switch to these boots, have the Titan use their super, drop the bubble with Crest of Alpha Loopy. They're going to drop 4 big orbs. You're going to get increased benefits to your super energy from those orbs because you have the boots on. Your whole team has Weapons of Light. You might be about halfway to your next super. Everyone's happy. These are no joke. Get them, create builds with them. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. If you're looking for a new controller, I am partnered with Scuff Gaming. Use the link down below and my code COOL at checkout for a discount. Let's talk about Star Eater scales down below. And oh yeah, when you've collected at least 1 feast orb, they start glowing. Pretty sweet. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.